Good morning, everyone. This is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. I want to do another video for the Pastors Course. This is video number 34, and the title of this video is Don't Burn Yourself Out. Don't burn yourself out. Burnout is one of the man traps on the journey of the pastor. It could be described as simple as this. It's what happens when a paraffin lamp does when it runs out of fuel. It burns out. The interesting thing is that this is a very useful device. This is an item that brings light to so many. It brings light and warmth. But if the fuel is allowed to run out, rather than being constantly refilled and trimmed, then eventually the light will dim and there'll be a flickering light until eventually the flame goes out and the wick carries on producing an acrid smoke which can fill a house and blacken the walls and ceiling. This is exactly what happens in the temple, what happened in the temple in the very early days of Samuel. The light was glowing dim, and the priest of the Lord Eli had become blind. Now that's a dangerous combination, because if the light goes out, then the religious life of the priests comes to an end. But just before the light failed completely, God called the young boy and tells him of the judgment of God that's coming on Eli and his sons. When we talk about burnout in this passage, we're thinking of the pastor who is fast running out of fuel. The big question as ever is, can the situation be rescued before burnout is complete? So what are the symptoms of burnout? It's when a pastor runs out of everything. He runs out of patience. He runs out of energy. He runs out of clear thinking. He runs out of everything that is the very best of his ministry. But you ask, how can this happen? The most common reason for this state of mind is the exhaustion that comes from doing too much for too long. And he feels an overwhelming compulsion to do more, and to do more to make up for the lack of benefits that are coming from all the effort put in. One of the ways to explain this is to understand the cycle that exists in any project. In a project, there are a number of stages. Okay, so for example, let's number them, shall we? At number 1, the goals are set. Okay, the goals and objectives are set. Number 2, the plan is made. Number 3, the fulfillment of the objectives and the goals. Number 4, the assessment of success. And number 5, the setting of new goals and objectives. And of course, this principle of a project is continuous. There's a continuous cycle. Now one can imagine this process in the concept of a circle going from 1 to 5, and then you go through the stages and you get back to number 1, and then you start again and go again. So this is like a continuous cycle. However, burnout is where there are a number of failings at each point. So the first mistake is unrealistic goals and objectives. And this can be fueled by an over-eager desire to see God's blessing far beyond the pastor's realistic objectives. John Wesley famously said that he worked constantly at a quiet pace, never attempted to do what could not be done comfortably according to his energy and resources. Now, that's the first mistake. The second mistake is, having made unrealistic goals, he begins to make a plan that is too intense, and it is so great that he will fast use up all of his resources of energy and means. So that's 2 mistakes already. The next one then that happens is that this unrealistic goal and objectives are unable to be realized. And this produces feelings of defeat and frustration and anger. And sadly, there becomes a reversal of the previous characteristics. So instead of being happy with God, he becomes angry with God. Instead of being patient and kind in his relations with others, he becomes bitter and critical and exhausted. Sadly, many pastors try to rise above this failure by making goals and objectives that will bring them back on track from the previously unrealistic goal, and thus the cycle of defeat is fueled again. So you can imagine the cycle not as a circle like this. Imagine the cycle like this, and you get from one point to another point to another point to another. And because the goals haven't been reached, when we get back to the first point, we find that we're further down than where we were when we started. So now we go around in a circle again, and we find that we go down again, and then we go around in a circle and we go down again. This is what we call the downward spiral. The downward spiral. And this downward spiral has to be halted. This is really the basic cause of burnout. So, is this because the pastor is ungodly or foolish? No. It's because of a failure to understand properly his own limitations. One only has enough energy. As a pastor, you only have so much money, and you only have so many hours in a day. And we all know what it's like to run out of money, but sometimes we run out of energy, or sometimes we run out of time. We just don't have enough of it. When any high performer needs, what every high performer needs is someone to watch over them. Athletes know this. They have a coach whose job it is to bring the potential without burning the person out or injuries to occur. Of all the things that pastors need, it's a coach or a mentor that will watch over him and help him to bring out his potential while guarding himself from overwork or burnout. In some missionary societies, they ask the missionaries to keep a track of their daily schedule, when they start, when they finish, and what they do. They found when they started doing this that many of them worked up to 100 hours a week. And when you're working on 100 hours a week alone, with very little money, sometimes poor food, you find that you'll soon run out. You get down and down. And what happens then is they set the targets higher and then higher and higher and higher. And what that does, that pushes the spiral up, and it pushes the circle of defeat downwards. In Mark chapter 6, verse 30 to 32, it says, the apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all that they had done and taught. Then, because there were many people coming and going, that they did not even have chance to eat, he said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. That's Mark 6, 30 to 32. And what the Lord Jesus is doing, they had been very busy, and the pressure of the ministry was still intense. So what did he do? He got them out of there to a place where there was complete peace and quiet, where they could unscramble their heads and where they could rest. Come ye yourselves apart and rest a while, he said. Come ye yourselves apart and rest a while. And people who suffer burnout, this is exactly what you need to do. By the way, if you have burnout, get a mentor that's experienced, that will get you away, that will get you into quiet, into a place of peace, where you can recover your strength and where you can recover your food and where you can sleep a lot and where you can just unwind. That's what they call it, unwinding. It's where the spiral is going downwards. And then it's no good having a rest and then starting the same downward spiral again. That would be pointless, right? So next time as we go through a project, we set realistic targets that we know that we can keep easily. And then we set about, we go right round the circle, and guess what? We find that we have actually completed more than what we thought that we would do. So we set low targets again and find that we do more than what we... So now this is an upward spiral. This is a spiral in which we're making success. We're not going downwards, being unfulfilled and tight. We're being excited and we're being blessed, and God is doing in us, and we're doing far more than we imagined. That's the upward spiral. Now let's look at some of the questions. How much of this passage resonates with you? Have you ever experienced burnout? Have you ever gone down the path to burnout and seen it coming? Have you got to the place of deep disappointment and stress and overwork and anger and resentment? Have you found that you struggle to sleep properly? Are you able to take a break? And who can you turn to for help? And when will you seek that help? Now these are a series of questions. Read through the questions again. You'll find that they're very thought-provoking and they'll help you to think through what's going on. Well, we wish you every blessing and look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye for now.